Welcome back inside the lab, everybody, to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Today's episode, it's a deep dive into the world of blue liners and big time bets coming out the door for a Big 12 game board. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news and degenerate gambling breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you for tuning in every single day and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Steele. Big Thursday episode, my friend. You know the juicy 12-game NHL betting board. It's got me fired up. We're trying to have another big week for this push to the playoffs. But honestly, I'm jazzed up to talk about all about blue liners today. And we're going to take a few different angles. We're going to take a look at this Norris Trophy race, which up until this Cale Makar injury, I thought there was going to be a little bit more interestingness going on this board. But maybe it's Erik Karlsson's already on his trophy mantle. But we're going to talk about that quickly. We're going to talk about some guys in striking distance for that Norris over the next year or two, real elite blue liners. And then, of course, for all you fantasy guys out there, all the keeper dynasty cats, Steele and I have some younger guys who might just be on the cusp of a big breakout. We're going to talk all about blue liners on today's episode. So thank you for joining us. Steele, I want to throw it over to you because I think you know the angle I'm going to take with maybe sprinkling a couple of bets on some of these longer shot odds. But is it Erik Karlsson's trophy already locked up? Because I think, though, just that caveat of a couple of games left, 10, 12 games here, just might be worth a little sprinkle on Cale Makar, Adam Fox, and otherwise.
Yeah, you know what? I think it is Erik Karlsson's. I think it's locked up already, and I think we can look over to the Hart Trophy and the Rocket Richard Trophy with Connor McDavid, and that he's already locked in to win those. I think it goes the same way for Erik Karlsson of the San Jose Sharks. He's been absolutely fantastic. Obviously, they're not going to be in the postseason. They're not going to be in the playoffs. He's playing for the Sharks, who are a bottom 5 team in the NHL right now. But the way he's producing at the age right now, he's top 3 in ice time this season with just under 26 minutes at 33 years old. So he's hanging in with all those young guys and guys that are in their prime. 87 points on the season. We just talked about Karlsson the other day. He's 18 points ahead of the next D-man in this race, which is Josh Morrissey with 69 points on the season. So I think Karlsson, there's no question he'll get to 90. Can he get to 100? That's the big question mark. I hope he does. It would be absolutely fantastic for the game and for his career to have a career year after everything he's been through. But Erik Karlsson right now, he's minus 370 to win the Norris Trophy. The next guy in line, or the next 2 guys in line, are Adam Fox and Cale Makar at plus 1,000 right now. I think it's too far out of reach, even with the last 10 games remaining. If Fox, Makar, even Morrissey or Hamilton were able to, put up a ridiculous amount of points, Karlsson's still going to be doing his thing. So I think it's locked up. But again, you're going to make the case right now and see if one of those guys can maybe catch him.
I just think we've seen some weirdness to this James Norris Memorial Trophy voting in the past. And actually, Erik Karlsson's been a victim of not getting enough respect for a straight, pure offensive season. Yeah. And even though maybe he should. And I think this year he probably, again, Steele, I'm not going to try and tell our listeners to go out there and hammer a plus 1,000 bet. But up until Cale Makar, and this is, again, another caveat that hurts my argument, that he just got hurt again. He could be out another week or so. Who knows? They're not going to rush him back. So that obviously hurts his case. But at plus 1,000, Adam Fox has had a great year. And I just want to throw some love at him, too, because the angle and the caveat I'm trying to take here, and again, guys, my bad for any Wi-Fi issues. We're getting there. Bell Canada, they're on the horn all day right now. They're trying to get me some pods. So the next day or two, we should be right back to premium Wi-Fi. That's my apologies there. Thank you for riding with us. Adam Fox completes all the boxes. Not even fantasy, just getting it done on the ice. And sometimes, Steele, we've seen that win this trophy for a player like Adam Fox. I know only points to Erik Karlsson's. It's like flip, not even in realm. But I just needed to come on here and say that some of these guys, maybe it's not this year's steal, and this is where we're going to slide into this conversation here next. They are going to be right there in the next couple of seasons, and I'm talking about Miro, Hieskennen, and Rasmus Dahlin, and I don't know if you're looking at anyone else who are right there knocking on the door for this trophy over the next year or two.
Yeah, those two guys I was definitely looking at. I think Miro Heiskanen is going to have a crazy season next year. It's going to be his blue line to run. He's going to be quarterbacking the power play. He's got those young talent guys on the top line. He's got Jake Ottinger behind him. So I think Miro Heiskanen and Rasmus Dahlin are going to be two guys to definitely keep an eye on. One guy that isn't even on the list. He's not even in the top 10 for the Norris Trophy right now, and it's kind of ridiculous because he's been overlooked all season long, especially for the team he's playing for. But it's Quinn Hughes of the Vancouver Canucks. I think he's going to have a crazy season next year as well. Obviously, he's been overlooked a lot because of the chaos that Vancouver has been through this entire season. Yes. An uphill battle from the get-go, right from the start of October. But Quinn Hughes has been absolutely spectacular. We haven't talked about him enough. He just became the third defenseman in the NHL history to have back-to-back 60-assist seasons. Other two players, I believe, were Paul Coffey and I'm blanking on the other name, but he's the third.
Paul Coffey, not bad.
Paul Coffey, not bad to be a part of that, but he's the third defenseman ever in the NHL to do this. He's the first defenseman in nearly 30 years to do it. So it's incredible the type of players that he's putting himself with right now. And like I said, we've talked about Karlsson, we've talked about Makar, Dahlin, Morrissey all season long, but we haven't talked about Hughes quite a bit. And he's top 3 in points. He's right there behind Josh Morrissey for points in the season. 67 points on the season right now. He was, looking over to our fantasy draft as well, he was drafted 69th overall in the 6th round. I think, honestly, that's a fair round to draft him in. I think he could go to the 5th round, maybe even to the 4th round next year, but he doesn't provide a ton of peripheral stats. So you're not going to get a ton of, shots on net. You're not going to get a ton of blocks. You're not going to get a ton of hits from this guy. If he can start to shoot the puck a little bit more, create more shots on goal, create more goals for himself as well. He only has 5 goals on the season. It's really those assists where all his production comes from. If he can just start putting the puck on net a little bit more, he'll even create more assists, maybe get some goals, get over the double-digit mark in goals for the first time in his career. But Quinn Hughes is a guy that I'm looking at for next year to really break out offensively, get some more goals, and pump up those peripheral stats in the process.
Absolutely, Steve, for bringing up a player that you said it, we haven't talked enough about, and that is our fault. And a lot of it is actually, I think, the madness that has gone on with Vancouver overall this season, and we touched on that yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think there's a couple of other guys too that maybe aren't as primed as as Quinn Hughes, as you mentioned, and as Miro Heiskanen. Those are two guys that are definitely on my list. But they're just right there after that elite group. And we're going to get to there in a second. There's also a couple of guys who are even a little bit older that I expect big years from too. So we're taking a bit of a keeper dynasty look at some of these up-and-coming young D-men as well, Steele. I love that angle. We're going to get to big-time bets. This is a loaded Thursday 12-game betting board. But those bets, you better be placing them with our friends from FanDuel Sportsbook. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The tournament is heating up, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet for up to $1,000, and that's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use, and they let you bet on everything. 3-pointers scored, points scored, the money line point spread, and everything in between. Steele and I like betting on that double-double action, triple-double, who wins the tip, race to 20, race to 30, everything in between. They let you do it at FanDuel. Plus, you can combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay with FanDuel. Don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet for up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So hammer that subscribe button, hammer the follow button. We appreciate all the love, all the support our listeners show us every single day, and we are here for you as well. Playoffs around the corner, big time bets, always a big part of our episodes here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Flip,
Yes, sir.
let's continue though. I really like
Let's.
this conversation of
Me
future
too.
defensemen, maybe making a push for the Norris Trophy or really just taking a step forward in their NHL career, young defensemen or defensemen who are in their prime, whoever it is. But I'll throw it over to you. Who are some defensemen that you think could really have a stepping out season next year in next year's regular season?
So I think there's two obvious names, Steele. Two obvious ones that, we waited for them for this season to step out, and maybe they're just not quite there, but they're close and they're getting better. And it's Owen Power and Moritz Seider. I think those are the two obvious ones. Miss out on those, just bring so much value to the table, and they fill it out in a lot of good categories while also still being young and getting better. So when I see the upside with both of those players as well, you can't ignore it. And you have to keep it tapped into two guys like Power and Seider that have already shown that they can get it done and are going to be in really good situations to win over the next couple of years with Buffalo and with the Detroit Red Wings. And then very quickly, Steele, three younger guys, Kalen Addison, Gooley, and Jake Sanderson, I think are all going to be maybe another year or two away. But Jake Sanderson, to me, Steele, looks like a guy who can really just eat a ton of minutes. He's going to get some good opportunity, underrated shot, got to grow that offensive side of his game, but has already had a good year, 4 goals, 25 assists in 66 games played this year. But yeah, Addison, Gooley, Sanderson, Power, and Seider are all like my power 5 in terms of young guys I'm ready to really take a step up next season.
Yeah, I have Owen Power on my list as well. I didn't want to put Kalen Addison on here, and it kind of pained me to do so, but just because I don't know if Minnesota is going to be re-signing John Klingberg, and if they do, he's going to be that guy that quarterbacks the power play, because we've already seen it this year. Once they acquired John Klingberg, Kalen Addison was healthy scratch. He hasn't played as much since that trade acquisition. So I want to see what happens with John Klingberg with the Minnesota Wild for next season. But I think you're right. I think Kalen Addison is probably 2 years away. Owen Power and Jake Sanderson will have a really nice season next year as well for their respective teams. The first guy, I've got 3 defensemen that I'm looking at, 3 young defensemen I'm looking at. First guy I'm looking at is Keandre Miller. Okay. He's been absolutely excellent all season long. Obviously he as a young defenseman, you're going to make some mistakes along the way. Happens to everybody, even happens to guys that are in their prime and who have been veterans. But 23 years old, he's playing for a New York Rangers team that is absolutely stacked right now. 38 points in 68 games. It's a career high for him. He has the peripheral stats to back it up as well. 85 blocks, 145 hits, 100 shots on the season as well. Still got 10 games remaining on the season to get his points up to over 45. Continue to pad those peripheral stats, but he's really accelerated in the second half of the season as well. He only had 15 points from October to December. He has 23 points from January till now. And like I said, still around 10 games left in the season. And he is putting the offensive threat up with those stars on the top 2 lines for the Rangers. So I really like Keandre Miller. I'm going to keep my eyes on him for next season as well and potentially draft him a little bit higher than usual.
Underrated left shot, big body, 6'5", 215 plus pounds. He's a guy that I've gone after in my keeper and dynasty league and missed out on because other GMs out there are starting to pay attention, and now he's starting to pay off for them. You mentioned his nasty side. He likes to throw the body, and why not with that big frame? But I can see 50 points this guy steal. And you and I, we used to be the Blue Shirt Podcast. In all seriousness, Keandre Miller is an important piece of this future, and he was right at the top of my list for guys who are 23, 24, 25, and right there about to just absolutely take this league by storm. And if you're okay, I'm going to reel off 2 of my guys very quickly. The one guy I want to talk about, I'm going to leave for the end. Philip Hronek and Vince Dunn might be just on the side of the cusp of the Keandre Millers. I'm not saying they're coming with the same quality, but Hronek and Vince Dunn are having great years. I think they're in good situations next year that you're going to want to take them a lot higher this year. Vince Dunn having a good year. Hronek having a good year. Underrated names as well, Steele, and I'm going to leave my favorite for the end because I think you have him too potentially.
I might have him. I've got 2 players left. You know what? I'll leave my favorite to the end as well. So I'll talk about this guy first. I've talked about him quite a bit, honestly, on this podcast as well, but it's UC Valimaki of the Arizona Coyotes. First round pick in 2017. He's
Nice.
24 years old. It looks like moving forward, he will be the number one defenseman for the Arizona Coyotes. And now, again, we don't know about any future trades. Maybe the Coyotes go out and trade for a defenseman. But as of right now, it looks like Valimaki is that number one guy. 31 points in 67 games. Again, he's really blossomed out since Chychrun and Gostisbehere have been traded before the trade deadline. 78 shots, 80 blocks, 45 hits, 55 penalty minutes. So he's decent for banger leagues as well. But again, you're not getting a ton of peripheral stats with Valimaki right now. He's still a young defenseman. He's 24 years old. He's finally just getting this opportunity on the top D pairing, on the top power play, and he is making the most of it. With Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz and a couple of those other guys, Barrett Hayton, who's playing well right now for the Coyotes too. So a lot of young guys. It's a very young team for the Arizona Coyotes, and Valimaki is a part of it. So as of right now, I'm keeping my eyes on him. I'm not sure where. You could probably draft him really late in next year's fantasy draft if you need to pick up like a bench defenseman or your sixth defenseman for your roster. But I really like Valimaki.
He's a sneaky one too. I think the rest of these guys that we're talking about much bigger in name, but that doesn't mean he's not going to bring that value. Because as of right now, Steele, if he continues to do what he's doing right now with his opportunity, that Arizona team is going to get better. And I really like Vejmelka. I also like JJ Moser. He's going to get more opportunity next year. They believe in some of these young pieces. That's why they've moved out the Chycruns of the world and their Gostisbeheres of the world to give these kids a shot. And you're going to see that next year, good or bad. So, keep it zeroed in on some of these opportunities because like my next guy, others aren't going to be out there as much, but some of those peripheral Arizona pieces for sure. Steele, at 6'4" and a former 12th overall pick, a good Summerside PEI boy, Noah Dobson is going to be one of the best offensive defensemen in this game for a long, long time. And he is only 23 years old, and he's having a step-out season. And he also brings the body. He also blocks shots. He's got 187 shots on net, 42 points. And I really do think, Steele, if he was on any other team not named the New York Islanders, he might have 70 points this season. That's just how much they struggle and how defense first we know that team is and that franchise is. Noah Dobson, keep your eye on him. I know Keeper Dynasty, you're not going to be able to go out there and just add him. But if you can get this guy, Steele, at a good round next year, he is going to have another huge year. I love Noah Dobson. Slow start to his career, and where he plays doesn't give him enough attention. Trust me. Remember the name.
No, you and I are both Noah Dobson fans, and like you said, it's where he's playing right now. We know they're a stingy and very defensive-orientated team, so that's where their focus is. But hopefully, that offensive capabilities out of Matthew Barzal, Bo Horvat, Anders Lee, they can kind of get that moving forward for next season. Noah Dobson can be that guy on the blue line to help them move forward. My next guy, former Toronto Maple Leaf. Former Toronto Maple Leaf. I'm looking at Rasmus Dahlin of the Washington Capitals right now. 20 points in 52 games with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He has 12 points in 9 games with the Washington Capitals. And I'm looking at why this is, obviously it's a smaller sample size of games, but he was averaging under 18 minutes with Toronto. He's averaging 25 minutes with Washington. He's playing 7 more minutes a night. He's getting the opportunity. 32 points on the season, 70 shots, 68 blocks, 138. You're getting a decent amount of hits from him. The other peripheral stats not quite there, but we can see that kind of ramp up as he develops and grows a little bit. Washington Capitals are still battling for a playoff spot. They are currently 5 points back of the Florida Panthers for that wild card spot. And I just thought about this right before we hopped on, but they haven't had John Carlson for 2 to 3 months now. He's been out of the lineup with that injury, with that scary injury.
Oh, that was scary.
It was very scary. But I'm thinking for next year, John Carlson and Rasmus Dahlin as the top D pairing as well. That could be pretty scary as well.
Interesting.
For the Washington Capitals. Again, that's why they've struggled. They've dealt with a lot of injuries this year. They've lost their top defenseman They've traded Dmitry Orlov and Erik Gustafsson to get Rasmus Dahlin back, and so far he's been absolutely spectacular for the Washington Capitals. But if he's on the team next year and he's playing with John Carlson, that could be a very deadly duo for the blue line of the Washington Capitals.
I love that angle, Steele. Looking at my list, listening to your list, if you can get yourself even 2 or 3 of these guys that we mentioned, your blue line's going to be sitting pretty next year. Yeah. Definitely on the offensive side of things, and definitely on the keeper dynasty side of things, because I think every single player we mentioned is either 25, max 26 and under. I think Roenick might be 25. Anyway, I'm just looking at guys in good situations with good opportunities who are already starting to really push the needle in the right direction for what you want to see fantasy-wise now that you can capitalize on next year. Yeah, we talked about the Norris Trophy, the obvious studs this season, but maybe you can get yourself a Norris Trophy winner in waiting, stash him on that blue line, make sure he's a keeper, and thanks Steele and I in a couple of years.
Yeah, thank you guys a lot for tuning in for our episodes every single day. You can thank us in a couple of years with those keeper league guys that we've just suggested. We are going to get to big time bets where the money is made. But first, this episode is also brought to you by Indeed. No matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And it's the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't have to pay. So instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. One thing that I love about Indeed is that Instant Match, and with Instant Match, over 90% of employers get quality candidates as soon as they sponsor their job posts. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. This offer is valid through March 31st. So go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are available Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Hammer that subscribe, hammer the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love, all the support our listeners show us every single day. Flip, there's a lot of games Thursday night. Many advantageous games. I like a lot of these matchups right now. And if you don't mind, I'd like to start off with the first one.
Please.
You know I have to do it. You know I have to go here. They're playing great hockey right now. I'm
Wild money line?
I'm taking the Wild on the money line.
There he is.
The Philadelphia Flyers. They've won their last 4 matchups against the Philadelphia Flyers. You could also potentially take the under in this game. I believe 3 out of the 4 last matchups have gone under the number in those Minnesota Wild wins. It's either 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 4, but I'm going to stick with the Wild on the money line. They've won their last 4 matchups. That is my first pick of the night.
3 out of 4 have gone under the number, Steele, but you are right with both of your numbers. So I'm with you. And actually, you're going to like my first pick because it's from this game as well, but it might not be what you expect it to be. And I was feeling a lot of different angles with this board. And it's much like I talked about it on Tuesday's episode about Wednesday's board, Wednesday's episode about Wednesday's board. Small games, when there's only 4 or 5, it can be sometimes hard because you just aren't feeling it. When it's a big board of juicy games, you sometimes need to put the blinders on because there's just so many spots you want to bet. And that's where I was at today. I'm going to stop talking and give the people what they want, which is my first pick. What I've seen from Matt Boldy over the last couple of games is starting to really impressed me, and he got the bag thrown at him by this Minnesota Wild team, and some people were wondering why. And I think now you're really See, not only is he scoring at will, hat trick against the Caps, but he's scoring in the clutch, the overtime winner against the Devils. That's a big win for this Wild team. He's stepped up in the absence when guys have gone down. He's had a good year. Give me the Matt Boldy anytime goal. That's my first pick. You're going to get a good odd for it too, Steele, and he's feeling it right now.
I absolutely love it. Matt Boldy has been spectacular. He has filled in Kaprizov's shoes, or skates, shall I say, since he's been injured. So he's been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely love Boldy and the Minnesota Wild. I love what they're doing right now. My second pick of the night. I'm taking a playbook. I'm taking a page out of your playbook here, Flip.
Here we go.
I've got my two final picks are an over and under. My second pick, I'm taking the Rangers and Hurricanes game under 6.5 goals. They just played the other night. It was 3-2 Hurricanes. We know that the Hurricanes are a stingy defensive team. We know the New York Rangers have Shesterkin, and when he's on his game, he is on his game. Best in the world. Yes. I'm taking the under 6.5, and this one is the lock of the night. It's the easiest one of the entire night to choose from. Maple Leafs and Panthers over 6.5 goals. 8 of their last 10 games have gone over the number. I'm taking it out of your playbook here, Flip. I've got the under 6.5 Rangers Hurricanes, over 6.5 Maple Leafs Panthers. That is my lock of the night.
I absolutely love it, Steele. And if you guys have been following along on Twitter or on the pod all year long, you've known that I've been hitting my over-unders. That's basically what I've been hitting. If it's a bad night, at least bet my over-unders. I am so with you for my lock of the night, Steele. It's over 6.5 in that Toronto Maple Leafs game. And one of the reasons why also is there's some players on that Florida team. You know, I like talking about Carter Verhaeghe, but they come into Toronto and they play really well because they have a lot of family and friends in this Ontario market, or they're East Coast boys and they get a shot playing in front of friends and family. But this isn't at Florida, and I understand when Toronto comes in, they get fired up the same way. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. And actually, Matt Murray's last 4 starts, he's allowed 4 or 5 goals, I think, in every single one of them. So I think he's due for a couple of muffins as well. This is Samsonov's crease. That is my lock of the night. But my second pick, and let me get to it because I think you're going to like it as well. The Washington Capitals are in very tough to make the playoffs. Yep. We said this. You and I both predicted they might fall out of it, and they have. But Alexander Ovechkin at this time of the season, when there is still a chance, the best of him comes out. And yeah, they might not have the odds, but they still have a chance. And don't tell Alex Ovechkin that they can't make that playoff spot because he knows very well that anything can happen in the playoffs. Ovi's red hot as well. 4 goals in his last 4 games. And they're playing the Chicago Blackhawks after, I don't know if you saw this game, Steele, the Caps blew it against the Blue Jackets and in absolute ugly fashion. So when you got the Chicago Blackhawks rolling in here on Thursday night for a big bounce back game, Alexander Ovechkin had to be looked at. And I'll finish it with this. Ovi in 22 career regular season games, better than a point per game player, 14 goals and 12 assists. He dominates the Blackhawks. Give me the Ovi anytime goal with the Boldy anytime goal as well, Steele. But lock of the night is the over in that Toronto at Florida game.
Yeah, that was just a tough game to watch. There's just no way you possibly lose that game. You're up 3-1 after the first period. You know, you're up 5-3 after the second, and you let them crawl back, and you can't miss out on that extra point when you're in a playoff race this tight at the end of the regular season.
Not against the Blue Jackets.
They gotta do something big against the Washington Capitals. I like all 3 of your picks. I really like all 3 of my picks, so they're definitely getting parlayed all together. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, though, check out Game to Game. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On hosts can deliver. Thank you so much again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.